Renewable energy is essentially a massive criminal Ponzi scheme. The waste of taxpayer dollars on wind and solar projects is criminal, and the damage to the environment is criminal as well. It's remarkable how silent the hypocritical environmentalists become when a wind factory is proposed. A wind factory that will require the ripping out of acres of pristine Australian outback for the access roads for construction, and then the bird choppers themselves, enormous monstrosities that are a blight on the landscape for miles around, and which, in more sensible times ahead, we hope, will stand as forgotten monuments to our net zero stupidity. Try and open a new mining facility and they'll be screaming from the rooftops, but a wind factory, silence. So in these depressing times, it's great to celebrate a small victory for common sense, thanks to the new Liberal Queensland government, which has cancelled an enormous wind factory and battery storage system that would have ripped the heart out of some of Australia's most unspoiled landscape. Bravo. Welcome back to MGUY, British engineer and lawyer, now Sydney-based YouTuber. Please make sure you've clicked that subscribe button down below and enabled all notifications so you don't miss out on any future videos. And if you'd like to support this channel, why not buy me a coffee? Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. The only reason we need renewables is because we refuse to embrace nuclear power, which would remove the need for these projects in an instant. But then the spigot of renewable energy subsidies and grants would be turned off, and all those rent seekers who make a living from the net zero madness would be out of a job. The whole thing reeks of corruption, and the re-elected Labour government will continue to prop up the renewable industry for another 3 years by keeping nuclear out of the way with ridiculous scare campaigns. Far better to keep their renewable mates happy than make electricity cheaper for Australians, right? The glossy website for this project has all the facts and figures. 88 wind turbines plus a battery energy storage system, each turbine 280 metres tall and taking up 20,000 hectares of Australian bush. All for a paltry 450 megawatts, if you're lucky on a windy day, half what a nuclear plant could achieve at a fraction of the footprint. But as the ABC reports in its tear-stained article, the project has been cancelled by the Queensland government. Good. Moonlight Range Wind Farm project axed by Queensland government. A $1 billion wind farm earmarked for central Queensland has been axed by Deputy Premier Jared Blay using ministerial powers. The Greenleaf Renewables development was to include 88 wind turbines and a battery energy storage system over 24 parcels of land at Morinish, 40 kilometres from Rockhampton, with a capacity of 450 megawatts to generate energy for 260,000 homes annually. The company had hoped to start building the Moonlight Range wind farm in 2026, with 300 jobs during construction and 10 ongoing jobs on completion. The project had been approved by the State Planning Department, State Assessment and Referral Agency in December 2024. In a notice dated May 22nd, Mr. Blay exercised his ministerial powers to refuse the development application. He began the process for a call-in to reassess the development application in January. During the 2-month call-in notice period, there were 508 representations, including 142 from local residents. 88% of residents were against it. 88% of residents were against it. But as we all know, net zero trumps everything, including local outrage, so it was granted planning permission anyway. The main concerns in the objections were strain on the accommodation supply from the 300 construction workers, lack of community consultation, and environmental and bushfire hazard impacts. Speaking on Monday, Mr. Blay said if communities supported these projects, they would go ahead. We think an equal and fair policy is just like the resource sector. The agricultural sector, the gas sector have to get certain approvals and community buy-in and community say. So should renewable energy projects. John Elrott's cattle property runs into the Moonlight Range, and he has previously refused requests from companies to build wind turbines on his property. I'm very pleased about it because the Moonlight Range has got some very significant flora and fauna on it that needs conserving and doesn't need to be flattened, he said. We don't need all our ranges covered in wind towers. Well, that's absolutely right. I drove to Canberra on Friday last week, and the previously unspoiled views on the way are now blighted by these ugly monstrosities across the beautiful New South Wales countryside. And the rent seekers are already wailing at the decision. Queensland Conservation Council spokesperson Stephanie Gray said the government was signalling that Queensland was closed for clean energy business. We also raised environmental concerns about this particular project because of its impact on threatened species, she said. Well, clearly not enough concerns that you'd actually oppose the project, though, despite the organisation being the Queensland Conservation Council, and which claims on its website to want to protect beautiful Queensland. Again, that doesn't apply to renewable energy projects which are just waved through. However, what we are also concerned about is the Queensland government is not doing anything across the board to manage the environmental impact of renewable energy projects. They are really sending uncertain signals to the industry, which means people might not want to invest in Queensland. Well, maybe not if they're after government handouts for renewables. But we should celebrate these small victories for common sense in a world of net zero insanity. The government might crow about how the wind and sun are renewable, but the wind turbines and the solar panels certainly are not renewable. They might last a decade or two and then have to be replaced, assuming they haven't burned to the ground in the meantime. Unless Australia votes in politicians who are prepared to stand up against the net zero madness, Australia will slowly be buried under thousands of ugly wind factories and acres of solar panels. And the environmentalists will be cheering all the way.